Hey guys, this is Coach Gaglione here. If this is your first time stopping by, this is the Powerlifting for the People podcast. We talk about all things strength training. We've done a lot of interviews in the past, and we're just going to dive into some different topics as well. This is going to be a bonus episode. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. So I'm rocking my Plain Edge Wrestling. This is my alma mater. Plain Edge is a little bit of a conglomerate of some different towns, but it's located in North Massapequa, Strong Island, New York. And, we had our alumni night recently. We have usually in every January or so. And one of the many hats I wear besides business owner, coach, powerlifter, etc., also I'm involved in the wrestling community. So I kind of coordinate a lot of our alumni stuff, try to spread the word. And that's mainly because wrestling has taught me a lot. And if you look at a lot of like really great lifters like Rob Philippus and Andrew Herbert, and the list goes on and on. I've noticed that there's been a lot of powerlifters that have some sort of wrestling in their background. I think Chris Bridgeford comes to mind as well. I'm sure there's like a ton of others, but those are kind of some people that I've had conversations with, and you kind of see the little cauliflower ear and all that stuff. It seems like a lot of times the wrestlers, just like powerlifters do as well, but the wrestlers definitely have that special connection. So anyway, wrestling taught me a lot about sacrifice, hard work, dedication, being on a team, teamwork, etc. Obviously, I had some experience kind of making a weight class and things like that. So there's a lot of parallels. Wrestling is an individual sport. Powerlifting is an individual sport. So it's something that I take a lot of pride in. So anyway, the reason I'm kind of telling you this story is I started talking with my old coach. His name is Rob Shaver, and he's a very, very great. He's got great programs there for both football and wrestling. He was my personal coach. And I learned a lot from him. Definitely had a big impact on my life, as well as some of my other coaches that I've mentioned on the podcast before. And you were talking about, and I've, if you guys, again, if you're new to the podcast, I've recently gone through like a weight loss journey in the past 2 years. I've been as heavy as 340 pounds. As of today, I weigh 230 pounds. I've lost over 100 pounds of body weight, kept it off. And I'm still maintaining, I'm holding my own. I'm not hitting any earth-shattering numbers by any means, but I'm still lifting pretty heavy and hard. But my goals have shifted a lot. And we got into talking a little bit, and he knows this as well. So back at the end of 2015, one of my goals was to hit a 900-pound equipped squat. And in the process of that goal, I let my weight balloon back up to about 335. And I achieved my goal, but I ended up, like I said, not even being able to finish the meet. I ended up bombing on bench and had a really poor performance in the deadlift. They let me deadlift anyway. So even though I achieved my goal of squatting 900 pounds, I didn't really have a great result. I wasn't even really in good enough shape to finish a 9-lift meet, which is, you get 3 lifts in the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. And I had to kind of rethink some things. So we were kind of talking, and as much as part of me, the powerlifter in me, after squatting 900, wanted to, chase 950, chase 1,000, I had to kind of reevaluate what my priorities are. So today's topic is the juice worth the squeeze? I'm sure you guys have heard that saying before, and it really rings home with me, especially, like I said, going through this, not just a physical transformation, but really a mental transformation in how I coach, how I view lifting, and how I view competitive athletics. So there's going to be a point in time in all of our careers, if we, let's say, I'm assuming that a lot of people listening identify maybe as a powerlifter, as a strength athlete in some capacity, or they just are really serious about lifting weights. And there's going to be a point in time where you have to kind of weigh the cost and the benefit to what it's going to take to elicit more progress. Using myself as an example, I've been powerlifting, so actually doing competition. So from 2006 through 2019 now, I've been doing meets. I started training for meets back in 2005. So I'm going into like my 13th year of competitive powerlifting. And competitive could be potentially in air quotes, because obviously I'm not, hitting numbers like a Larry Williams or anything like that. But competitive for me, where I consider training and lifting definitely one of my, my top life priorities. It's something that really keeps me going, especially being a former wrestler, a former football player, just a former athlete in general. I needed something to kind of keep me going. And we talked about this before. Having a goal is much like, it's giving yourself a target to shoot for. So I do think whether you are trying to be really competitive or you're doing powerlifting more for recreational reasons, having a goal, doing competitions can be a very healthy part of your training experience and allow you to drive progress forward. But that being said, like I mentioned before, I'll use my raw numbers as an example because I think that's more realistic for most people. But my first meet was at 198 pounds back in 2006, and I squatted 375 pounds. Over the years, like I mentioned before, my weight got up all the way up into super heavyweight territory, and I was able to squat 705 pounds in knee sleeves and a belt, and I'm sure you could, maybe if Elvis could put the video here, I squatted 705 pretty handily. I did that when Ray Williams was up. I'm sure that didn't hurt the cause. But that's been, so obviously, added nearly, nearly 400 pounds, close to 400 pounds to my squat in that decade, in that time frame. So I think that was back in 2017. I have not hit an all-time PR since 2017. 2017 was probably arguably my strongest raw strength. I don't know if it was my strongest pound for pound or anything like that, but strongest raw numbers by far. But again, like I mentioned, at that point I also in that same year, was it 2000? Yeah. So in that same year, I also I might have messed up a date before. I just realized, but that's neither here nor there. That's fine. At the end of 2016, I guess. Yes, that's at the end of 2016 is when I squatted the 900. A little bit of a blur being in the 2019, but that's neither here nor there. But my point is, I haven't hit an all-time PR since 2017, and that's okay. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay if I might spend the next couple of years just trying to get back to all-time record territory because I'm much lighter, because I'm 100 pounds lighter. I'm literally a different person. It would not be fair for me to compare myself at 230 than it would be at 330 or 340 or whatever the case may be. Even at 275, I felt my strongest ever, probably equipped and raw, pound for pound. I was probably like in a 290 pound range. When I hit my best total ever, I did a weight cut from 296 to 275, hit my best total there, which was a 1950 total. I did not have a great meet prep for that, but I had a very good performance, and I still left a lot of pounds on the platform. I just missed a 650 deadlift twice, which would have totaled 2,000 pounds. So I've been still chasing that 2,000 pound number equipped, again, which is nothing earth shattering, but I just never really was in the past, I was never really a good meat lifter, and I left a lot of my best lifts in the gym. Now things have been changing, and I've been hitting better lifts on the platform than in training, so I've been becoming a smarter and more technical lifter. But I just want to kind of give you guys some context that, again, I'm still training very hard, I'm still making progress, but just in a different way. For me, the juice was not worth the squeeze anymore for me to stay at super heavyweight and continue to push with really crazy programs. It wasn't really feasible for me to like have more volume or more intensity or really longer training sessions. It would have decreased the quality of my life so much that I don't even know how much longer I'd physically be able to live just from a health standpoint. I certainly wouldn't be able to progress in my business. I would not be as good of a coach. So at that point for me, I had to make a decision that I had to sacrifice some pounds on the bar in order for me to increase other areas of your life. And if you want to break an all-time world record, or if you want to really maximize your performance, it's really not, competitive athletics is not healthy. It's not healthy at the highest level. If you're trying to squat 900 pounds, if you're trying to deadlift 400 kilos, bench press 500 pounds raw, etc., these are not really kind of typical normal things, and that's totally fine. And I do help some athletes that are trying to push the envelope in the competitive athletics, but I always try to do so with their health in mind. And there might be times in their case, or in your case if you're listening, that the juice is not worth the squeeze anymore. And you have to pivot, you have to reinvent yourself. I think Mark Bell is a great example of this. And he's someone I hold in high regard, and him and Chris are someone I consider them both very good friends. and I'm happy to have known them even before they were both really successful. Well, I should say Chris maybe not so much, but Mark, I've known Mark since before Slingshot, which is what it become today. This this $1 million company. And in Mark is a great example. Chris is a great example as well. Mark, when Mark fell with 1,080, that was a life-changing moment for him. And after that, he competed Raw for a little bit, so he kind of got out of the gear. He did some Raw stuff. He reinvented him, did a bodybuilding show, and now he's kind of, he's trying for, if I recall correctly, he's going to attempt a 500-pound Raw bench in the 220 class. So I know Mark's best bench in competition is about 578, so that's nowhere near an all-time best, but he's just establishing new goals for himself, and he's pivoting. So just like for myself, I'm kind of working my way down. I've hit a total at 242 since coming down. I actually hit an all-time PR deadlift in a meet at 275 on my way down. I hit a squat. I established squat PRs and deadlift PRs in the 220 class, and now I'm on my road to 198 pounds. I'm going to establish some PRs and records in the 198 class. And then from there, if I choose to start to go back up slowly, I'm going to do that in a healthy way. But I'm just pivoting. I'm just adding new goals. So for me, to be, it made more sense for me to be less competitive with others and less competitive in general, and just to be a little bit more competitive with myself and just kind of pivot and change my goals. So I'm not really so romantic. I'm not really chasing numbers anymore. I'm just using powerlifting as a means to enjoy my training, maintain my muscle mass, and improve my health and body composition for the long term. I'd be lying if I said I still care very much about my numbers and I still get competitive in the gym, but my mindset is shifted and my goals have shifted quite a bit. So anyway, going back to the story, when I was having the conversation with my old coach at Plainage, Coach Shaver, he asked, do you get anything special when you go from 900 to 1,000? And it really just it was such he was actually serious. It was like a profound statement. Does anything happen? No, not really. If you go from 600 to 700, nothing really happens. I mean, if you hit an all-time world record, the best thing that happens is maybe you get some more followers on Instagram, and maybe on Powerlifting Watch, or you get your name on a website. Nothing balloons don't come from the sky, fireworks don't blow off. Especially it's not nothing really crazy happens for you to hit this new milestone. Now that being said, I think it's really I still celebrate those milestones. I think it's really important. But it just kind of got me thinking, in the grand scheme of things, and this is something Donnie Thompson said, no one really cares about your squat. Yes, in our little powerlifting bubble, some people may care. But for the average person, maybe besides a Ray Williams or Larry Wheels or something like that, the average person doesn't really care. So at the end of the day, if you're doing this for recognition for other people, I think that's fine. If that's cool and that makes you happy, that's great. But I think at the end of the day, you need to do this for yourself. In my opinion, if you don't really have your health, I don't think it really matters. So there might be some periods of time where you're getting ready for a competition. Maybe you sacrifice other areas of your life for a little bit. Maybe you focus a little bit more on training and you don't focus as much on work. Maybe you don't focus as much on family and relationships during that period. But I think in general, you have to shift your priorities, and you have to just kind of think a little bit more long term and not just day to day. So having a little bit more of a longevity approach, and just kind of understand there's going to be a time where you may need to pivot, you may need to shift your goals. I'm not saying you ever have to hang up your singlet, because I certainly don't plan on hanging up my singlet or my squat shoes or anything like that anytime soon. But I do think it's important to think about your mindset and when you need to pivot. Maybe you continue to have some injuries, so if you get to the point where you're going to have to sacrifice the quality of life and sacrifice things in your business, your family, and your personal relationships too much in order to make progress anymore, I think that's kind of the time where it's important to pivot. I do think it's important if you're kind of not really sure what the next step is, or maybe you kind of feel like you hit a plateau. It's important to have this conversation with yourself, but don't be afraid to also to have this conversation with your coach. And if you don't have a coach, you can check out the links below. This is certainly a conversation that we could have over a consultation. I'm happy to help you, especially since I'm kind of going through this process myself. So it's really important that you ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I know for me, it just wasn't worth it anymore for me to stay at super heavyweight. It wasn't worth it for me anymore to really just be unhealthy anymore. So if you're kind of struggling, if you have to sacrifice your health, your well-being, your personal relationships, your job, just to add another 25 pounds to your squat, I think you need to ask yourself if maybe your goals need to change. That being said, I think that you should try to be the best version of yourself. I think you should be well-rounded. I think you should continue to push through PRs, and I think powerlifting is something you can do for a long period of time in a healthy way. But just understand that you don't have to necessarily emulate a lot of these lifters on Instagram. You have to forge your own path. So don't be afraid to just think outside the box and just do what makes you happy and do what makes you feel fulfilled. It doesn't necessarily need to be, again, all-time PRs are great. They should be celebrated. But those are not the only ways you can measure progress. You can measure progress in many different ways, in different weight classes, the speed of the bar, your technique, how you feel. Maybe you hit a certain weight and it felt really good this time and didn't hurt this time. Not being in pain, that's tremendous, and those things should be celebrated as well. So realize that powerlifting can be utilized as a tool for competition. It could be used as a tool for health and longevity. It could be used as a tool for happiness. How you use that tool is up to you. I think that's basically, I think I kind of ranted enough, but it's just something that's been on my mind, and I wanted to kind of explain like where my head was at. This is also helpful for me to get my thoughts out. But I think this message will resonate with a lot of people, especially the lifters that have been in the game for 10, 15, or 20 years plus. I think it's really important. And again, I love lifting. I want to continue to do this for a long time, so I needed to pivot. So just don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to now. And if you're a newer lifter, if you're only like a couple of months in or only a couple of years in, this message may not apply to you, but it's maybe a message that you need to revisit once you maybe start to get some injuries or you start to plateau. In order to reach the highest level, there's going to be some road bumps, there's going to be injuries, there's going to be bumps and bruises along the way, but depending on what your goals are, depending on what your why is, always ask yourself what your why is, and for more information on that, you can check out our podcast on goal setting. It's really important that you have a deep meaning for, if you're going to put all this time and effort and work into increasing your total, make sure you have a strong reason for it and make sure that you're not sacrificing things just for the sake of an empty goal. You want to make sure the goal is fulfilling for you and the process, and you really love the process. And I love lifting, and so that's why I kind of pivoted, and that's why I changed my goals. So again, this message may not be for you, but I hope it at least gets you to think a little bit, and I hope if you want to chat more, you can check out the links below. I'm happy to kind of guide you through the process if you're really not sure like what the next step is, or if you want to kind of reevaluate how you're training or what your goals are. Just know that we're here to help, and I'm happy to support you any way I can. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. If you like the podcast, you want to share it with a friend. Maybe this would be a great podcast to share with maybe somebody that needs to hear it. Maybe they got to hear. Maybe they're taking powerlifting too far and they need to hear this message, and maybe they need to pivot. Maybe maybe you have a partner that's not so healthy. This would be a great podcast to share with them. And as always, thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button. And until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.